The coffee shop smelled like burnt sugar, and regret the morning Olivia Greene realized she had been in love with her best friend for 10 years without ever admitting it to herself. She sat across from Marcus Irwin, watching him scroll through his phone with that focused expression he always got when he was working on something big. His dark hair fell across his forehead, and she resisted the urge to reach over and brush it back like she had 1,000 times when they were kids. They were 28 now, adults with careers and responsibilities, but sitting here in this cramped Boston cafe felt exactly like being 14 again, sharing a milkshake at the diner near their high school. "You are not listening to a single word I am saying," Olivia said, stirring her latte with more force than necessary. Marcus looked up, and his gray eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "You were talking about your sister's wedding drama. Something about the flowers being the wrong shade of pink, peach. They were supposed to be peach, not coral. There is a difference. If you say so." He set his phone down and gave her his full attention, which was both what she wanted and somehow terrifying. "Sorry, work has been crazy." "Work is always crazy for you." Olivia took a sip of her coffee, burning her tongue slightly. Marcus had been working at some investment firm for the past 3 years, pulling long hours and talking about portfolio management in a way that made her eyes glaze over. She taught second grade at an elementary school in Cambridge, which meant her idea of a stressful day involved a kid throwing up on her shoes and another one eating glue. "This is different," Marcus said, and there was something in his voice that made her pay attention. "I am leaving the firm." Olivia set down her cup. "What? Why? You have been working toward making partner. I know, but I have been thinking about this for a while now." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she recognized from childhood. "I am starting my own company. Private equity, but focused on sustainable energy and green technology. I have got investors lined up, and I am launching next month." Pride swelled in her chest, mixed with something that felt uncomfortably like fear. Marcus had always been ambitious, even when they were kids running through the woods behind their neighborhood, pretending they were explorers. He would plan out their adventures with the same intensity he now applied to business deals, making maps and setting goals. She had been happy just to follow along, content to be part of his world. "That is amazing," she said and meant it. "That is really amazing, Marcus. I want you to be there," he said. "At the launch party. I know those things are not really your scene, but it would mean a lot to have you there." "Of course I will be there. When have I ever missed something important to you?" He reached across the table and squeezed her hand, and Olivia felt that familiar electricity that she had been ignoring for years. "Never. You have always been there." They had been friends since they were 8 years old, when Marcus's family moved into the house next door. Olivia's mother had made her bring over a welcome basket, and she had grudgingly trudged across the lawn, already prepared to dislike the new kid. But Marcus had answered the door with dirt on his face and a frog in his hands, asking if she wanted to help him build a habitat in his backyard. They had been inseparable ever since. Through middle school awkwardness and high school drama, through college at different universities and the weird adjustment of adult life, they had remained constants in each other's lives. Olivia had dated other people, and so had Marcus. She had sat through dinners with his girlfriends, smiling and making conversation while something bitter twisted in her stomach. None of those relationships had lasted, and she had told herself she was glad because it meant nothing would change between them. But things were changing anyway. Marcus was starting a company, building something that would demand all his time and energy. And Olivia was still teaching second grade, still living in the same apartment she had rented 5 years ago, still waiting for something she could not quite name. "I should go," Marcus said, glancing at his phone. Meeting with my lawyers in an hour. But same time next week. Same time next week, Olivia confirmed, like they had every Wednesday morning for the past 3 years. She watched him leave, tall and confident in his navy suit, and thought about all the things she had never said. The coffee in her cup had gone lukewarm, and the burnt sugar smell suddenly made her feel nauseated. Her best friend since childhood, Emma, called that evening while Olivia was grading spelling tests on her couch. "You need to tell him," Emma said without preamble. "Tell who what?" Olivia drew a smiley face next to a perfect score, even though her mind was not on the work. "Do not play dumb. Tell Marcus how you feel." Olivia set down her red pen and leaned back against the cushions. "There is nothing to tell. Olivia Grace Greene, I have known you since college, and I have watched you pine after this man for 6 years. The only person who does not know you are in love with him is Marcus himself. He is my best friend, so best friends fall in love all the time. It is literally a romance trope. Real life is not a romance novel." Olivia picked up another spelling test, trying to focus on whether a 7-year-old had correctly spelled elephant. They had not. "And even if I did have feelings for him, which I am not saying I do, this is the worst possible time. He is starting a company. He is going to be busier than ever. Or maybe it is the perfect time. New chapter in his life, new possibilities. Or maybe I value our friendship too much to risk it on something that probably would not work out anyway." Olivia's voice came out sharper than she intended. "Sorry, I cannot think about this right now." Emma sighed. "Okay, but Liv, you cannot wait forever. Eventually, he is going to meet someone else, and you are going to have to watch him fall in love, and it is going to break your heart." After they hung up, Olivia sat in the silence of her apartment, surrounded by spelling tests and the comfortable clutter of her life. Emma was right, but being right did not make things easier. Olivia had built a safe, predictable world for herself, and confessing her feelings to Marcus would shatter that safety. She thought about the first time she realized she might love him. They were 21, home for winter break during their senior year of college. There had been a snowstorm, and they had spent the entire day in his parents' basement, watching old movies and arguing about whether Die Hard counted as a Christmas film. At some point, she had fallen asleep on his shoulder, and when she woke up, he was still there, his arm around her, his breathing slow and steady. The television was playing the credits of some movie she had not been watching, and in that moment she had felt entirely at peace. That was when she knew. But knowing and doing something about it were two different things. The launch party for Marcus's company, Irwin Sustainable Capital, was held at a sleek downtown hotel with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Olivia arrived feeling underdressed in her simple black dress, surrounded by people in designer suits who talked about market disruption and scalability. She clutched her small purse and wondered how quickly she could leave without being rude. "You came." Marcus appeared at her elbow and her breath caught. He looked different in his tailored charcoal suit, more polished and adult than she was used to seeing him. But when he smiled, it was the same smile from childhood, warm and genuine. "I said I would." She held up a small wrapped box. "I brought you a present. You did not have to do that." "Open it later," she said, suddenly self-conscious. Inside was a compass, engraved with the coordinates of their childhood street. She had spent too much money on it, and now worried it was too sentimental. Marcus introduced her to what felt like hundreds of people. His business partner, Derek Chen, was sharp and friendly. His lead investor, a woman named Patricia Vance, sized Olivia up with an assessing look that made her stand straighter. Everyone seemed excited about the company's prospects, throwing around numbers that made Olivia's head spin. "Excuse me for a moment," Marcus said, his hand briefly touching her lower back. "I need to give a speech. Stay right here," she nodded, and he disappeared into the crowd. A waiter passed by with champagne, and she took a glass, sipping it slowly while she waited. "So you are the famous Olivia." Patricia Vance appeared beside her, holding her own glass of champagne. She was probably in her 50s, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and the kind of presence that made people pay attention. "I do not know about famous," Olivia said. "Marcus talks about you constantly. When we were negotiating the investment terms, he insisted on building in vacation time, because you two have some annual camping trip you do every summer." Olivia felt a flush of warmth. They had been camping together every August since they were 16, a tradition that had survived college and careers and everything else. Last year they had hiked in the White Mountains, and Marcus had gotten them hopelessly lost until Olivia pulled out her phone and admitted that maybe they should use GPS instead of his terrible sense of direction. "We have been friends for a long time," Olivia said. Patricia studied her with those sharp eyes. "He is going to be very successful, you know. This company is going to explode in the next few years. His life is going to change dramatically." There was something in the way she said it that felt like a warning, but before Olivia could respond, someone called Patricia away, and she was alone again. Marcus's speech was brief and heartfelt. He talked about his vision for sustainable investing, about wanting to make a difference while generating returns. He thanked his team and his investors and his family, and then he looked directly at Olivia. "I also want to thank my best friend, Olivia, who has been supporting me since we were kids. She is the person who reminds me why all of this matters. Thanks for being here, Liv." The crowd applauded, and Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back, smiling when Marcus made his way back to her through the congratulations and handshakes. "Good speech," she managed. "I meant every word." He looked at her in a way that made her heart race, and for a moment she thought maybe Emma was right, maybe she should say something. But then Derek was pulling Marcus away to talk to another investor, and the moment passed. She left early, pleading a headache that was not entirely fake. The noise and crowd had drained her, and she needed to be alone with her thoughts. As she rode the train back to Cambridge, she stared at her reflection in the dark window and wondered when her life had become something she was just watching happen instead of actively living. 3 months passed in a blur of routine. Olivia taught her second graders, graded papers, and met Marcus for coffee when his schedule allowed. But those meetings became less frequent as his company took off. He was always apologizing, always promising to make more time, and she always told him it was fine. She understood. The truth was more complicated. She missed him with an intensity that scared her. Not just their Wednesday coffee dates, but all the small moments they used to share. The texts throughout the day about random observations. The way he would show up at her apartment with takeout when he knew she had a rough week. The feeling of being someone's priority. Now when they did see each other, Marcus was distracted, his mind always partly on work. He talked about deals and investments, and Olivia tried to follow along, but it felt like he was speaking a language she did not understand. The distance between them was growing, and she did not know how to close it. "Maybe you should start dating," her sister Sarah suggested over lunch one Saturday. Sarah was younger by 2 years, recently married, and absolutely convinced that marriage and romance were the solution to everything. "I do not have time to date," Olivia said, pushing her salad around her plate. "You have time. You are just spending all of it pining after Marcus." "I am not pining. Liv, you turned down that nice teacher from your school because you were too busy. Except you were not too busy. You just did not want to go out with anyone who was not Marcus." Olivia set down her fork. His name was Greg and he was boring. He was perfectly nice and you know it, but fine, maybe he was not right for you. That does not mean you should just give up. I am not giving up. I am focusing on my career right now. Even as she said it, Olivia knew it sounded hollow. She loved teaching, but she could not pretend it was some all-consuming passion that left no room for anything else. Just think about it, Sarah said gently. You deserve to be happy, and waiting for something that might never happen is not a life plan. That night, Olivia lay in bed and thought about what Sarah had said. Maybe her sister was right. Maybe it was time to move on, to accept that she and Marcus were always going to be just friends. She tried to imagine going on dates with other people, maybe meeting someone kind and stable who would want the same things she wanted. A family, a home, a partnership. But every time she tried to picture that future, the face of the imaginary man blurred and shifted until it was Marcus looking back at her. Her phone buzzed with a text. It was almost midnight, but Marcus was apparently still awake. Sorry, I had to cancel coffee this week. Crazy busy. But I have a free evening tomorrow. Want to get dinner at Salvatore's? My treat. Salvatore's was the Italian restaurant they had been going to since college. It was their place, with red checkered tablecloths and breadsticks that were probably too garlicky but tasted like nostalgia. Sounds perfect, she texted back, and tried to ignore the way her heart lifted at the prospect of seeing him. The next evening, Olivia spent too long getting ready, changing outfits 3 times before settling on a blue dress that Emma had told her brought out her eyes. She put on makeup, then wiped most of it off, not wanting to look like she was trying too hard. When she finally arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes late, Marcus was already there, sitting in their usual booth in the back. He stood when he saw her, and his smile was genuine and warm. You look beautiful. You are required to say that as my best friend, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. I am saying it because it is true. He had changed out of his work clothes into jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look more silver than usual. This was the Marcus she knew, relaxed and comfortable, and she felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. They ordered their usual dishes, the same things they had been getting for years. The waiter, an older man named Antonio who had been working there forever, teased them about being creatures of habit. How is work? Olivia asked, breaking off a piece of breadstick. Exhausting and exhilarating. We just closed our first major deal, a solar panel manufacturer in California. I was out there for 2 weeks negotiating. He shook his head, laughing. I think I forgot what my own bed feels like. That is amazing, Marcus, really. It is. But I have been a terrible friend lately. I feel like I barely see you anymore. You are busy, I understand. I know, but I do not want to be one of those people who gets successful and forgets about the people who were there before. You are important to me, Liv. You have always been important to me. She looked down at her plate, afraid of what he might see in her eyes. You are important to me, too. I have been thinking. Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. Things are stable enough now that I can actually have a life again. I want to make more time for us. Maybe we could start up our weekly coffee dates again. And we are still on for camping in August, right? Of course we are. I would not miss it. The food arrived, and they fell into easier conversation, talking about her students and his travels, about a movie she had seen, and a book he was reading. By the time dessert came, Olivia had relaxed completely, laughing at one of Marcus's stories about a disastrous meeting where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I have missed this, Marcus said suddenly. I have missed you. I have been right here, Olivia said softly. I know. But I feel like I have been missing a lot of things lately. Like I have been so focused on building this company that I have not been paying attention to everything else. He reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "You keep me grounded. You remind me who I was before all of this." Olivia's breath caught. His hand was warm and she could feel her pulse racing. This was the moment. This was when she could say something, could tell him how she felt. The words were right there, pushing against her teeth. But then his phone rang and he grimaced. "I am sorry, I have to take this. It is our lawyer and he has been trying to reach me all day." He stepped outside to take the call, and Olivia sat alone with her pounding heart and her cowardice. When he came back 10 minutes later, apologizing profusely, the moment was gone. Summer arrived with humid heat and the promise of their annual camping trip. Olivia spent July planning the route, researching campgrounds in Maine where they could hike and swim and pretend the rest of the world did not exist for a few days. It was her favorite time of year, those few days when she got Marcus entirely to herself, away from phones and meetings and the demands of his increasingly successful company. The night before they were supposed to leave, Marcus called her. She knew from his tone immediately that something was wrong. "I am so sorry, Liv. I cannot go." She sat down on her couch, phone pressed to her ear. "What happened?" "There is a problem with the California deal. Something about the contracts I do not fully understand yet, but I need to fly out there tomorrow morning. I tried to push it back, I really did, but this could sink the whole deal if I do not handle it personally." "It is okay," Olivia heard herself say, even though it was not okay at all. "I understand. I will make it up to you, I promise. We can go in September when things calm down." But Olivia had heard that before, the promise that things would calm down, that there would be more time later. "Sure, September sounds good." After they hung up, she sat in the silence of her apartment and felt something crack inside her. She had been patient and understanding and supportive for months, and what had it gotten her? More broken promises and empty spaces where Marcus used to be. Emma came over an hour later with wine and ice cream. "I am officially saying it. You need to tell him how you feel or you need to let him go." "Let him go," Olivia laughed, but it sounded harsh even to her own ears. "He is my best friend." "Is he, though? When was the last time he actually showed up for you? And I do not mean texting you or calling when he has 5 free minutes between meetings. When was the last time he prioritized you?" Olivia wanted to argue, but she could not. Marcus had been her best friend for 20 years, but lately it felt like she was the only one still fighting for that friendship. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked quietly. "Just walk away from 20 years. I am not saying walk away. I am saying stop waiting for him to figure out what he is missing. You deserve someone who shows up for you, Liv, whether that is Marcus or someone else." That night, Olivia made a decision. She was going camping alone. She had been looking forward to this trip for months, and she was not going to let Marcus's cancellation ruin it. Maybe some time alone in the woods would help her figure out what she wanted. The campground was beautiful, nestled in the pine forests of central Maine with a lake that reflected the sky like glass. Olivia set up her tent, proud that she managed it without Marcus's help. She had always been the one holding the poles while he figured out which pieces went where, but she had watched him do it enough times that she could manage on her own. The first day, she hiked 5 miles, stopping to rest by a waterfall where the sound of rushing water drowned out her thoughts. The second day, she swam in the lake, floating on her back and staring up at clouds. The third day, she sat by the campfire she had built herself and admitted that being alone felt lonelier than she had expected. She was roasting a marshmallow when her phone rang. She had barely any service, but Marcus's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," she answered, pulling the marshmallow away from the fire before it burned. "Where are you? I am at your apartment and your landlord said you left town." Olivia's heart jumped. I am camping. I decided to go anyway. Alone. Liv, you have never camped alone before. There is a first time for everything. What are you doing at my apartment? The deal fell through. He sounded tired and frustrated. The company had been hiding some environmental violations, and when we found out, we had to walk away. I just spent 3 days in California for nothing, and I came straight here because I thought maybe we could salvage the camping trip, but you are already gone. Marcus. She did not know what to say. Part of her was angry that he had just assumed she would be waiting for him, and part of her wanted to tell him exactly where she was so he could drive up and join her. I know I messed up, he said quietly. I have been messing up a lot lately, but I want to fix this. Tell me where you are. Pine Ridge Campground in Maine. But Marcus, you do not have to come up here. It is a 4-hour drive. I will be there in 4 hours. He hung up before she could argue. Olivia sat by the fire, her mind racing. She should have told him not to come. She should have said she needed this time alone. But the truth was, she wanted to see him. She had missed him so much it was a physical ache, and the prospect of having him here, even for a day or two, was too tempting to resist. He arrived just after midnight, his car pulling into the campground with the headlights cutting through the darkness. Olivia had stayed awake, keeping the fire going, and she stood when she saw him emerge from the car, his hair messy and his eyes tired. "You came," she said. "Of course I came." He walked toward her, and in the firelight his face looked younger, more like the boy she had grown up with. "I am sorry I canceled. I am sorry I have been a terrible friend. You have not been terrible, just busy. That is the same thing." He sat down on the log next to the fire and she joined him. "I have been thinking about what Patricia said to you at the launch party." Olivia looked at him in surprise. "How did you know about that?" "She told me. She said she warned you that my life was going to change and that you should be prepared for that. I have been thinking about it ever since." "What about it?" "She was right that my life has changed, but she was wrong about what that means. Because the most important things have not changed at all. You are still my best friend. You are still the person I want to call when something good happens. And sitting here right now, I realize that all the success and all the money does not mean anything if I am too busy to spend time with the people I care about." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "Marcus, let me finish. I have been an idiot. I have been so focused on building this company that I have been taking you for granted, and I do not want to do that anymore. I want to be a better friend. I want to show up for you the way you have always shown up for me." "You are here now," she said softly. "I am here now," he agreed. He looked at her, and in the firelight his eyes were dark and intense. "Liv, can I ask you something?" Her heart started racing. "Of course. Do you ever think about us? About what we might be if we were not just friends?" The question hung in the air between them, and Olivia felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. She could lie, could laugh it off and keep everything safe and unchanged, or she could jump. "Yes," she whispered. "I think about it all the time." Marcus went very still. "How long?" "Years. Maybe since college, maybe longer than that." Now that she had started, the words came tumbling out. "I kept telling myself it was better to be your friend than to risk losing you. But Emma was right. I have been pining after you for so long, and it has been making me miserable." "Emma knew." He sounded stunned. "Everyone knows except you, apparently." "I am an idiot," Marcus said again. Then he reached over and cupped her face in his hand, his thumb brushing over her cheekbone. "I have been in love with you since we were 16 years old, maybe longer. I just never thought you felt the same way." Olivia's breath caught. "What?" "That first camping trip we took, remember? We stayed up all night talking about everything and nothing, and I realized I never wanted to have those conversations with anyone else. But you were my best friend, and I was too scared to ruin that. And then in college, you started dating that guy from your literature class, and I figured I had missed my chance. So I dated other people and tried to move on, but no one was ever you. Why did you never say anything? Same reason you did not. I was scared. He smiled, and it was shaky but genuine. We are quite a pair. Olivia laughed, and it came out as half a sob. We really are. So what do we do now? She looked at him, at his familiar face that she had known almost her entire life, and felt something shift into place. I think you should kiss me. Yeah. His smile widened. Yeah. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but she was done waiting. She closed the distance between them, and when their lips met, it felt like coming home. The kiss was soft and tentative at first, both of them learning this new way of being together. But then Marcus pulled her closer, his hand sliding into her hair, and Olivia wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him with all the longing she had been suppressing for years. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I cannot believe we wasted so much time. We did not waste it. We were building a friendship first. That matters. It does. He kissed her again, softer this time. I love you, Liv. I have loved you for so long. I love you too. Saying it out loud felt like magic, like she was casting a spell that would change everything. They stayed up the rest of the night talking, sitting by the fire and kissing and making plans. Marcus told her about all the times he had almost confessed his feelings, and Olivia told him about the years of silent longing. They laughed and cried and held each other, and by the time the sun rose over the lake, Olivia felt like a different person. Like she had been holding her breath for years and could finally exhale. I do not have a tent, Marcus said as the sky turned pink and gold. You can share mine. It is big enough for two. She grinned at him. Just to sleep. I am not that kind of girl on a first date. This is not a first date. This is a first date after 20 years of foreplay. Olivia laughed and kissed him again, because she could now. Because he was hers and she was his, and they had finally figured it out. They spent the next 3 days camping together, and it was different from all their previous trips. Every casual touch felt charged with new meaning. They held hands while hiking, kissed on the shore of the lake, and slept tangled together in the tent that was definitely too small for 2 full-grown adults, but neither of them cared. On their last night, lying under the stars, Marcus said, I need to tell you something about the company. Olivia tensed slightly. Okay. It has been doing better than I expected, a lot better. We have closed deals with 3 major manufacturers in the past 6 months, and we have investors fighting to give us money. Patricia thinks we are going to be valued at over $1 billion within the next 2 years. $1 billion. Olivia sat up, staring at him. Marcus, that is incredible. It is also terrifying, because I have seen what money does to people. I have seen how it changes things. He sat up too, taking her hands. But I do not want it to change us. I do not want you to think that any of this matters more to me than you do. I do not think that. Good. Because you are the most important thing in my life. You always have been. Olivia kissed him, tasting the truth of his words. We will figure it out, together. When they drove back to Boston, Olivia felt like she was returning to a different life. Everything looked the same. Her apartment with its cramped rooms and her school with its cheerful bulletin boards. But she was fundamentally changed. She was in love and she was loved, and that made all the difference. They decided not to tell anyone right away, wanting to keep this new thing between them private while they figured out what it meant. But keeping a secret from Emma turned out to be impossible. You are glowing, Emma said the moment she saw Olivia. They were meeting for coffee, their regular Sunday morning tradition, and Emma took one look at Olivia's face and gasped. Oh my God, you told him. He told me, actually. Olivia could not keep the smile off her face. He has been in love with me since we were 16. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. Emma grabbed her hands across the table. Tell me everything, and I mean everything. Olivia told her about the camping trip, about the kiss by the fire and the 3 days of bliss in the woods. She told her about how Marcus made her feel like the most important person in the world, and how being with him was the easiest thing she had ever done. "So what now?" Emma asked. "Are you officially dating?" "We are officially in love," Olivia said. "The dating part feels redundant at this point." "Fair enough. Have you told your family?" "Not yet. We want to keep it quiet for a little while longer, figure out how this changes things." But keeping it quiet proved harder than anticipated. A week later, Olivia was having lunch with Sarah when her sister narrowed her eyes and said, "You have a hickey on your neck." Olivia's hand flew to her neck, even though she had checked that morning and there had been nothing there. "I do not." "You just checked, which means someone has been kissing your neck. Is it that teacher?" "Did you finally go out with Greg?" "No, it is not Greg." "Then who?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Oh my God, it is Marcus, is it not? How did you know?" "Because you are smiling like an idiot and the only person who makes you smile like that is Marcus. How long has this been going on?" "About 2 weeks. We figured some things out." Sarah squealed, actually squealed in the middle of the restaurant. "I am so happy for you." "When do I get to interrogate him about his intentions?" "Never. You are never allowed to interrogate him." But Sarah was not the only one who figured it out. Marcus's business partner Derek saw them having dinner together, and apparently the way Marcus looked at Olivia gave everything away. "You two are together," Derek said, cornering Marcus at the office. "Finally." "How did you know?" "Dude, you talk about her constantly, and I saw the way you looked at her at the launch party. I was wondering when you were going to figure it out." By the time September rolled around, enough people knew that they decided to stop hiding it. Marcus posted a photo on social media of the two of them hiking, her hair wind-blown and his arm around her shoulders. The caption was simple: "My best friend, my love." The response was overwhelming. Friends from childhood, from college, from work, all commented with variations of "finally," and "we knew it," and "you two are perfect together." Olivia's mother called her in tears, saying she had been hoping for this since they were kids. "Your mother has been shipping us since we were 8, Marcus said that night, lying on Olivia's couch with her tucked against his side. "That is kind of adorable. She used to tell me we would get married someday. I always told her she was crazy. Were you lying?" Olivia tilted her head to look up at him. "Maybe," he kissed her forehead. "Good, because I have been planning our wedding since I was 18. You have not." "Okay, maybe not planning, but definitely thinking about it. You would wear something simple but beautiful. Probably outdoors somewhere, and absolutely no coral flowers." She laughed and kissed him. "Peach. The flowers would be peach." Fall brought changes to both their lives. Marcus's company continued to grow at a pace that was both exciting and overwhelming. He hired more staff, opened a second office in San Francisco, and traveled constantly for meetings and site visits. But he kept his promise to make time for Olivia. He blocked out Wednesday mornings for their coffee dates, and he made sure to be home most weekends. Olivia started to get invited to work functions, fancy dinners, where she met executives and investors and people who moved in circles she had never imagined being part of. She felt out of place at first, uncomfortable in cocktail dresses and heels, but Marcus was always there, his hand on her back, introducing her with pride in his voice. "This is Olivia, my girlfriend," he would say, and her heart would skip every single time. She met his investors, his lawyers, his expanding team of employees. Everyone was polite and welcoming, but she could see some of them wondering what a second-grade teacher was doing with someone like Marcus. She tried not to let it bother her, but sometimes, late at night, she worried that they were right, that she did not fit into this world he was building. "You are overthinking," Marcus said when she finally voiced her concerns. They were in his apartment, a sleek modern space in the back bay that felt nothing like the cluttered house he had grown up in. "I love you for exactly who you are. I do not want you to change. But what if I am holding you back? What if you need someone who understands your world better?" He pulled her onto his lap, his hands resting on her hips. "You are my world. Everything else is just details." "That is very romantic, but it is not realistic. Your company is about to be valued at $1 billion. That is not just details." "Okay, you are right. The company is important. But it is not more important than you, and anyone who thinks you do not belong in my life can get lost." He kissed her softly. "You make me better, Liv. You keep me grounded and remind me why I started all this in the first place. I need you." She wanted to believe him, but the doubt lingered. It was easier when they were alone, just the two of them in her apartment or his, cooking dinner and watching movies and being normal. But every time they went to some work event, she felt the weight of being the billionaire's girlfriend, and she was not sure she knew how to carry it. The first major fight happened in November. Marcus had to fly to San Francisco for a week, and he asked if Olivia could come with him. She had to say no because it was the week of parent-teacher conferences, and she could not just skip them. "Can someone else cover for you?" Marcus asked, and she could hear the frustration in his voice. "No, these are my students and my responsibility. I cannot just abandon them because you want me to go on a trip. It is not just a trip, it is work, and I would like to have you there." "I have work too, Marcus. Just because I am not running $1 billion company does not mean my job is not important." They had hung up angry, and Olivia had spent the rest of the day feeling sick about it. But when Marcus called that night to apologize, his voice was thick with exhaustion and regret. "I am sorry. You are right. Your job is important and I was being selfish. I am sorry too. I know you are under a lot of pressure right now. I just miss you. I hate being away from you. I miss you too." She curled up in her bed, holding the phone close. "Tell me about your day." He did, and they talked until he had to go to a dinner meeting and she had to finish grading papers. It was not perfect, but they worked through it, and that felt like a small victory. The weeks before Christmas were chaotic. Marcus was trying to close a major deal before the end of the year, and Olivia was managing school holiday programs and her own family obligations. They barely saw each other, and when they did, they were both exhausted. "I do not think I can do Christmas at your parents' house this year," Marcus said on the phone one night. "I am sorry. I know it is tradition, but I have meetings scheduled through the 23rd, and then I have to fly to Germany for a conference." Olivia felt disappointment settle in her chest. They always spent Christmas together, had since they were kids. "Okay, I understand. You are upset." "I am not upset. I miss you. I feel like we are ships passing in the night lately." "I know, I hate it too, but this is temporary. Once we close this deal, things will slow down." But Olivia had heard that before. She did not say anything, just made a non-committal sound and changed the subject. 2 days before Christmas, Marcus showed up at her apartment at 9 at night, covered in snow and carrying a suitcase. "What are you doing here?" Olivia stood in the doorway, shocked. "I canceled the Germany trip. I told them I had a family emergency." He stepped inside, brushing snow from his coat. "You are my family, Liv, and I am not missing Christmas with you." She burst into tears, which she had not been expecting, and he pulled her into his arms. "I am sorry," he murmured into her hair. "I am so sorry. I have been putting work first, and that is not fair to you. You are building something important, I understand. No, you do not have to understand. You do not have to just accept that I am going to be a terrible boyfriend because I am busy. You deserve better than that. She pulled back to look at him. You are not a terrible boyfriend. I am not a great one either, but I want to be. I want to figure out how to balance all of this. They spent Christmas with her family, and it was perfect. Marcus charmed her mother, argued good-naturedly with her father about football, and played endless board games with Sarah and her husband. On Christmas morning, he gave Olivia a present that made her cry all over again. It was a necklace, simple and beautiful, with a pendant shaped like a compass. So you can always find your way home, he said. And so you know that home is wherever you are. She gave him a leather journal embossed with his initials, for writing down all your big ideas. And maybe some personal thoughts too. That night, lying in her childhood bed together, listening to her family moving around downstairs, Marcus said, I have been thinking about next steps. Next steps for us, for our future. He turned to face her, his expression serious. I know we have only been officially together for a few months, but we have known each other our whole lives. I do not need more time to know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Olivia's heart started racing. What are you saying? I am saying that I am going to marry you someday. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but someday soon. I am saying that I am all in, Liv, completely and forever. She kissed him, tasting salt from her tears. I am all in too. The new year brought new challenges. In January, a business magazine ran a profile on Marcus, calling him one of the most promising young entrepreneurs in sustainable investing. The article mentioned Olivia briefly, describing her as his childhood friend turned girlfriend, and suddenly, she was getting friend requests from people she did not know and messages asking for interviews. Is this what your life is like all the time? She asked Marcus, staring at her phone in bewilderment. Sometimes, I will call our PR person. She can help you set up some privacy settings. Your PR person. Olivia shook her head. I am dating someone who has a PR person. You are dating someone who loves you and wants to protect you from annoying reporters. He took her phone and started adjusting settings. There, that should help. But the attention did not entirely go away. A few weeks later, a gossip blog ran a photo of them having dinner, with a headline speculating about when Marcus was going to propose. Olivia found it embarrassing and invasive, but Marcus just shrugged. They are bored, looking for drama where there is not any. Does this happen a lot? More than I would like, but I have learned to ignore it. Olivia tried to follow his example, but it was harder than she expected. She was a private person, and the idea of strangers speculating about her relationship made her skin crawl. In February, things came to a head when a photographer followed them to the grocery store, snapping pictures while they shopped for dinner ingredients. Marcus got angry, telling the photographer to leave them alone, which only resulted in more photos and a story about his temper. I hate this, Olivia said that night, curled up on his couch. I hate that we cannot just be normal. We are normal. They are just intrusive. But this is going to keep happening, is it not? The more successful your company becomes, the more attention we are going to get. Marcus did not answer right away, which was answer enough. I can hire security if you want, people to keep the photographers away. That is not normal either. No, it is not, but it is the reality of my life now, our life. He took her hand. I know this is not what you signed up for. I signed up for you, all of you. I need time to adjust. Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere. Spring arrived with warmer weather and the promise of change. Olivia's school year was winding down, and she was looking forward to summer break and the possibility of traveling with Marcus. He had promised her a vacation, just the two of them, somewhere far away where no one would recognize them. In April, Marcus's company officially crossed the billion-dollar valuation mark. There was a celebration at the office, champagne and congratulations, and Olivia stood in the crowd watching Marcus give a speech and felt a mixture of pride and vertigo. This was real. Her best friend from childhood was now a billionaire, and somehow, incredibly, he was in love with her. "You okay?" Derek asked, appearing at her elbow. "Yeah, just processing. It is wild, is it not? I have been working with him for almost 2 years, and it still feels surreal sometimes." He looked at Marcus, who was talking animatedly with Patricia. "But he has not changed, you know. Not where it matters. He is still the same guy who brought donuts to the office every Friday and remembered everyone's birthdays." "He is," Olivia agreed, feeling some of the tension ease. "He is lucky to have you," Derek said. "Someone who knew him before all this. Someone who keeps him grounded." That night, after the celebration, Marcus took her to the harbor. They walked along the water, holding hands, and he was quiet in the way he got when he was thinking deeply about something. "What is on your mind?" Olivia asked. "I have been offered a spot on a panel at a conference in Switzerland in June. They want me to talk about sustainable investing and the future of green technology." "That sounds amazing. I want you to come with me, not just to the conference, but after. We could spend a week traveling. Paris, Rome, wherever you want to go. Marcus, I cannot afford a trip to Europe." "I will pay for it. Before you argue, just hear me out. I have more money than I know what to do with, and the only thing I want to spend it on is making you happy. Let me do this." Olivia wanted to argue, to say that she did not need expensive trips or fancy gestures. But the truth was, she wanted to go. She wanted to see the world with him, to have adventures like they had when they were kids pretending to be explorers. "Okay," she said. "Yes, let's go to Europe." His smile was brilliant. "Yeah? Yeah, but I am paying for my own gelato in Rome." He laughed and kissed her, right there on the harbor walk with the city lights reflecting on the water, and Olivia thought that maybe she was finally learning how to exist in this new version of their life. The trip to Europe was everything she hoped for. The conference in Switzerland was impressive, watching Marcus speak on a stage to hundreds of people about the intersection of profit and sustainability. She was proud of him, of how far he had come from the boy who used to catch frogs in his backyard. After the conference, they traveled to Paris, where they ate pastries and visited museums and kissed on bridges like tourists. Then to Rome, where Olivia insisted on throwing coins in the Trevi fountain, and Marcus complained about the cobblestones hurting his feet. And finally to a small village in Tuscany, where they rented a cottage and spent 3 days doing nothing but reading and making love and drinking wine on the terrace. On their last night in Italy, Marcus made dinner while Olivia sat on the terrace watching the sunset. He brought out pasta and salad and a bottle of wine, and they ate slowly, savoring every bite. "I do not want to go home," Olivia said. "I want to stay here forever. We could. I could work remotely. You could teach English to Italian kids. You would go crazy without your office and your team." "Maybe, but I would be happy." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I am happiest when I am with you. Even when I am making you walk miles through museums, especially then." He stood up, still holding her hand, and pulled her to her feet. "Dance with me." "There is no music, so—" He wrapped his arms around her waist, and she rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. They swayed together in the fading light, and Olivia felt perfectly content. "I love you," Marcus murmured into her hair. "I have loved you for so long, and I will love you for the rest of my life." "I love you too." She tilted her head back to look at him. "Thank you for this trip, for everything." "You do not need to thank me. Making you happy makes me happy. It is that simple." When they returned to Boston, Summer was in full swing. Olivia had the next 2 months off from teaching, and she spent them dividing her time between her apartment and Marcus's, enjoying the luxury of not having to grade papers or plan lessons. They fell into an easy routine, cooking breakfast together, going for runs along the Charles River, spending evenings on his balcony watching the city lights. In July, Marcus brought up the subject of her moving in with him. "You are here most of the time anyway. Why not make it official?" Olivia hesitated. "I do not know. I have had my apartment for 5 years. It feels like giving up my independence." "I am not asking you to give up anything. I am asking you to share your life with me more fully." He pulled her close. "But if you are not ready, that is okay too. No pressure." She thought about it for a week, weighing the pros and cons. Her apartment was cramped and the heat did not work well in winter, but it was hers. Marcus's place was beautiful and spacious, but it felt like his space, not theirs. "I have a counteroffer," she said finally. "Let's get a new place. Together. Something that is ours, not yours or mine." His face lit up. "Really, really. I want to build a home with you, but I want it to be something we choose together." They spent August apartment hunting, looking at places in Cambridge and Somerville and the South End. Olivia fell in love with a brownstone in the South End with high ceilings and big windows that let in lots of light. It was more expensive than she could have ever afforded on her own, but Marcus did not even blink at the price. "This is the one," he said, standing in the empty living room. "I can see our life here." They moved in September, just before school started. Olivia's small amount of furniture looked lost in the big space, but Marcus promised they would fill it together. They spent weekends shopping for couches and rugs and artwork, arguing good-naturedly about colors and styles. Slowly, the apartment became a home, a reflection of both of them. The first night in their new place, they ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor because their dining table had not been delivered yet. Marcus opened a bottle of champagne and they toasted to new beginnings. "This is good," Olivia said, looking around at their home. "This feels right." "It does." Marcus set down his glass and pulled out a small box from his pocket, "which is why I want to make it official." Olivia's breath caught. "Marcus." He opened the box, revealing a ring. It was beautiful, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and understated. "I know we said someday, but I do not want to wait anymore. I want to marry you, Liv. I want to build a life with you, have kids with you, grow old with you. You are my best friend and my love, and I cannot imagine a future without you in it." Tears were streaming down Olivia's face. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. "I had it made special. The sapphire matches your eyes." She laughed through her tears and kissed him, tasting salt and champagne and joy. "When did you plan this?" "I have been carrying that ring around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. And then tonight, sitting here in our home, it just felt perfect." They made love on the floor of their new living room, surrounded by moving boxes and the promise of their future together. Afterward, lying tangled in blankets, Olivia looked at the ring on her finger and felt overwhelmed with happiness. "I want to call everyone," she said. "I want to tell the whole world. Then let's call them." Marcus handed her his phone, and they spent the next hour calling family and friends, laughing and crying and accepting congratulations. Emma screamed so loud that Olivia had to hold the phone away from her ear. Sarah cried and demanded to be maid of honor immediately. Olivia's mother said she had been waiting for this since Olivia was 8 years old. Marcus's parents, who Olivia had known almost as long as her own, welcomed her officially into the family with warmth and love. By the time they were done making calls, it was after midnight and they were both exhausted and giddy. "We are getting married," Olivia said, still not quite believing it. "We are getting married," Marcus confirmed, He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. "You are going to be my wife. You are going to be my husband." She tested the words out, liking how they felt. "My husband, the billionaire. Is that going to be my official title?" "Absolutely. I am going to introduce you as my husband, the billionaire, at parties. I will introduce you as my wife, the brilliant teacher who shapes young minds. That is much longer than my introduction. Yours is more important." He kissed her again, slow and deep. "Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for asking." They spent the next few months planning a wedding while juggling their busy lives. Olivia wanted something simple and intimate, while their families had other ideas. Eventually, they compromised on a small ceremony in the spring, outdoors if the weather cooperated, with just close family and friends. Marcus threw himself into wedding planning with the same intensity he applied to his business deals, researching vendors and venues and making spreadsheets. Olivia found it both endearing and slightly overwhelming. "We do not need a spreadsheet for the seating chart," she said, looking at his laptop. "We do if we want to make sure Aunt Linda is not sitting next to your cousin Brad after that argument at Thanksgiving. That was 3 years ago. Family feuds never die, Liv. We need to be strategic." She laughed and kissed his cheek. "Okay, you handle the logistics. I will handle the creative stuff." They worked well together as they always had. Marcus managed the budget and the contracts, while Olivia chose the flowers and the music and the menu. Sarah helped with dress shopping, and Emma organized the bachelorette party. Derek agreed to be Marcus's best man, and Patricia offered to help with anything they needed, which Olivia found surprisingly touching. In March, a month before the wedding, they went back to the campground in Maine where everything had changed. It was still too cold for camping, but they stayed at a nearby inn and hiked during the day. "This is where it all started," Marcus said, standing by the lake where they had kissed for the first time. "Where we finally got it right." "We were always right," Olivia said. "We just took the long way around." "Do you think we would have made it if we had gotten together earlier? Like in college?" "I do not know. Maybe we needed all those years of friendship first. Maybe we needed to grow up and figure out who we were separately before we could be together. Maybe." He pulled her close and they stood looking out at the water. "I do not regret any of it, even the years of pining and wishing and not saying anything, because it all led us here." "Me neither." She turned in his arms to face him. "I am glad my best friend is becoming my husband. I am glad my forever person was right next door all along." The wedding was perfect. It was held in a garden outside Boston, with cherry blossoms in full bloom and the sun shining warm despite the April date. Olivia wore a simple ivory dress that Sarah had helped her pick out, and she carried a bouquet of peach roses. Marcus wore a navy suit and cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. They had written their own vows, and when it was Marcus's turn to speak, his voice was thick with emotion. "Liv, I have known you for 20 years, and I have loved you for most of them. You have been my best friend, my confidant, my partner in adventure. You have seen me at my worst and my best, and you have loved me through it all. I promise to show up for you, to make time for you, to prioritize us above everything else. I promise to keep camping with you every August, even though we both know I am terrible at reading maps. I promise to love you fiercely and faithfully for the rest of my life." Olivia was crying by the time he finished. When it was her turn, she took a shaky breath and looked into his eyes. "Marcus, you have been my constant for 2 decades. Through every change and challenge, you have been there. You know me better than anyone, and you love me anyway. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me want to be better. I promise to support your dreams while chasing my own. I promise to call you out when you are working too much and to remind you what matters. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, and your love for all the days of our lives." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed her like he was trying to make up for all the years they had wasted not kissing, and their guests erupted in applause. The reception was joyful and relaxed, with good food and better company. They danced their first dance to a song they had loved since high school, and Olivia rested her head on Marcus's chest and felt completely at peace. "How does it feel to be Mrs. Irwin?" he murmured. "I am keeping my last name, actually." "How does it feel to be married to Mr. Greene?" she laughed. "You are not taking my name." "I will if you want me to. I will do anything for you. I know. That is why I love you." They honeymooned in Bali, spending 2 weeks on beaches and in jungles, disconnected from work and obligations. It was blissful, just the two of them learning how to be married, figuring out this new chapter of their story. On their last night, sitting on the balcony of their villa watching the sunset, Marcus said, "I want to talk about next steps. More next steps. We just got married. I know, but I have been thinking about the future, about what we both want." He took her hand, playing with her wedding ring. "Do you want kids?" "Someday, yes. Do you?" "I do. I want little versions of you running around, smart and kind and curious about everything. What if they are little versions of you, ambitious and intense and terrible at directions? Then we will teach them to use GPS." He kissed her knuckles. "I am not saying we need to start trying right now, but I want you to know that I am thinking about it, about our family, our future." "I am thinking about it too." Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder. "I want it all with you. The kids, the chaos, the whole beautiful mess of building a life together. Then that is what we will do." He wrapped his arm around her. "Together." When they returned to Boston, they settled into married life with surprising ease. They both kept working, Olivia at her school and Marcus at his company, but they made sure to prioritize their relationship. Wednesday morning coffee dates continued, and they established new traditions, cooking dinner together every night they were both home and taking weekend trips to explore New England. In the fall, a year after they got married, Olivia realized she was late. She took 3 pregnancy tests, not quite believing the results, and then called Emma in a panic. "I am pregnant. I am actually pregnant." "That is amazing. Congratulations." "I am terrified. What if I am a terrible mother? What if I do not know what I am doing?" "No one knows what they are doing. You will figure it out just like everyone else. And you have Marcus. You will figure it out together." Telling Marcus was both easy and hard. She planned an elaborate reveal, then abandoned it in favor of blurting it out the moment he came home from work. "I am pregnant." He dropped his briefcase. "What? I am pregnant. I took 3 tests, actually 4. They all say the same thing." He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby." He picked her up and spun her around, laughing, and she held on tight, feeling the joy radiating off him. "I love you," he said, setting her down gently. "I love you so much. You are giving me everything I have ever wanted." The pregnancy was not easy. Olivia dealt with morning sickness that lasted all day and fatigue that made teaching exhausting. But Marcus was attentive and supportive, bringing her ginger tea and rubbing her feet and reading parenting books with an intensity that made her laugh. They told their families at Thanksgiving, presenting Olivia's parents with a wrapped box containing a onesie that said "Grandma and Grandpa's first grandchild." Her mother cried, and her father hugged Marcus and told him he was going to be a great dad. As winter turned to spring and Olivia's belly grew, they prepared the nursery in what had been Marcus's home office. They painted it a soft yellow and assembled furniture and argued about whether they needed a wipe warmer. "We do not need a wipe warmer," Olivia said. "That is ridiculous. The internet says babies do not like cold wipes." The internet is trying to sell us things we do not need. They compromised, as they always did, getting some baby items Marcus insisted on and skipping others Olivia thought were excessive. In May, Olivia went into labor 3 weeks early. Marcus drove her to the hospital, holding her hand and breathing with her through contractions. The labor was long and hard, but when their daughter was born just before midnight, everything else faded away. "She is perfect," Marcus said, holding the tiny baby with tears streaming down his face. "She looks just like you. She has your nose," Olivia said, exhausted but happy. They named her Margaret Rose after both their grandmothers, but called her Maggie. She had dark hair like Marcus and blue eyes like Olivia, and she was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. The first few months were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diaper changes. Marcus cut back on his travel, working from home as much as possible, and Olivia took a leave of absence from teaching. They stumbled through new parenthood together, learning as they went, supporting each other through the hard moments and celebrating the small victories. When Maggie smiled for the first time, they both cried. When she rolled over, Marcus took 1,000 photos. When she said her first word, which was Dada, to Olivia's mock outrage, they called everyone they knew to share the news. "We made a person," Marcus said one night, watching Maggie sleep in her crib. "A whole entire person. We did." Olivia wrapped her arm around his waist, leaning against him. "She is going to be amazing. She is going to change the world, I can already tell. That is a lot of pressure to put on a 3-month-old. She is our daughter. She can handle it." As Maggie grew, she became the center of their world. Marcus scaled back his involvement in the company, promoting Derek to CEO while he took a step back to focus on strategy and big-picture decisions. He wanted to be present for Maggie's childhood in a way his own father had not been able to be. Olivia went back to teaching part-time when Maggie turned 1, and they hired a nanny to help with childcare. It was an adjustment, balancing work and parenting and their relationship, but they made it work. They had date nights when Maggie stayed with grandparents, and they took family vacations to the beach where Maggie could play in the sand. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they went back to the Italian village where Marcus had proposed. Maggie stayed with Olivia's parents, and they had a week alone together, remembering what it felt like to be just the two of them. "I love our life," Olivia said, lying in bed in the same cottage they had stayed in years before. "I love our daughter and our home and everything we have built together." "Me too." Marcus pulled her closer. "You know what I was thinking about today?" "What?" "That first day at the coffee shop when I told you about starting the company. You looked at me like I could do anything, like you believed in me completely." "I did believe in you, I always have." "I know, and that belief helped me become the person I am today. You helped me become this person." He kissed her softly. "Everything good in my life comes back to you." "Everything good in my life comes back to you too. You were my best friend first, and that made all the difference. Still your best friend. Just also your husband and the father of your child and the person who loves you more than anything in this world." "That too," she agreed, and kissed him again. They had 2 more children over the next 5 years. A son named Oliver James, who had Marcus's gray eyes and Olivia's stubborn streak, and another daughter named Emma Rose, named after Olivia's best friend, who was gentle and thoughtful and loved books. Their brownstone filled with noise and laughter and the beautiful chaos of family life. Marcus continued to be successful in business, but he never let it consume him the way it had in those early years. He coached Oliver's soccer team and attended every school play Maggie was in and read bedtime stories to Emma every night. He had learned to balance ambition with presence, success with what truly mattered. Olivia found fulfillment in teaching. shaping young minds and making a difference in ways that could not be measured in dollars and valuations. She loved her work, but she loved her family more, and she never felt like she had to choose between them. On a Wednesday morning, 15 years after that coffee shop conversation that had started everything, Olivia and Marcus sat in the same cafe with the same burnt sugar smell. Their kids were at school, and they had stolen a few hours alone together, keeping their old tradition alive even as their lives had changed dramatically. "Remember when you told me you were starting the company?" Olivia asked, stirring her latte. "I was so proud of you, but also so scared that everything was about to change." "Everything did change, but also nothing changed. You are still my best friend. We still have coffee every Wednesday when we can. We still go camping every August, just with more people now." The kids loved it this year. "Maggie is almost as bad at reading maps as you are." "Hey, I have gotten better." "You have not, but I love you anyway." She reached across the table and took his hand, feeling the weight of his wedding ring against her fingers. "We did good, did we not? We built something real." "We did." Marcus looked at her with the same expression he had worn when they were 8 years old and building frog habitats in his backyard, when they were 16 and staying up all night talking about dreams, when they were 28 and finally admitting they were in love. "You have always been my forever, Liv. From the moment you showed up at my door with that welcome basket, you were my person. I just did not know it yet." "I think I knew it," Olivia said softly. "Even when I was 8 years old, some part of me knew that you were going to be the most important person in my life. Best friends to lovers. It is a pretty good story. It is our story, and I would not change a single thing about it." They finished their coffee, paid the bill, and walked out into the bright morning sunshine hand in hand. They had a life full of love and children and challenges and joy. They had built a home together, raised a family together, grown and changed together while staying fundamentally the same people who had fallen in love by a campfire in Maine. Marcus pulled her close and kissed her right there on the busy Boston street, and Olivia kissed him back, tasting coffee and promise and the sweet knowledge that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Her childhood friend had become a billionaire, yes, but more importantly, he had become her partner, her love, her forever. And in the end, that was the only thing that truly mattered.